Hello, everybody. Let me just get situated and see if I can get my chat working. Stream chat. Testing 1, 2, 3. I have chat working in Restream, but I don't know if you can see it. So that's sort of why I'm doing a little testing right now. How do I get rid of this chat window? Okay, cool. All right, so I am in my room. This is my bedroom. You can see it's a nice place to sleep. I didn't paint that, but I bought it several years ago. From a pizza parlor in Austin, one of my favorite places to get food and hang out, the parlor. And they sell some pretty cool artwork there sometimes. I think the owners or managers had an art gallery next door. And so I found some really interesting things at this pizza parlor in Austin. That's one of those paintings I've had for years. It used to be at my shop, but I had to get some studio mates recently, so I've been rearranging. And I have roommates, so I've been rearranging. And I've gotten rid of a lot of things. So I had a spare bedroom in the house that was full of like tons of materials, sewing machines, dye vats, like just things to make things with. And then I had a little house in the backyard, like studio space in the backyard that was full of stuff for the whole family, but like a lot of my stuff. And then my shop, which I had, I guess the space is maybe like 30 by 50 feet, maybe a little bit more. And I had it all crammed full of my stuff, plus 2 trailers outside and a storage unit. So I am a little bit of a hoarder by nature. And for a while there, I kind of had the ability to like spread out, but now I'm renting out a lot of my space to like stay afloat in Austin, and definitely motivated a bit by this weird time we're in. Most of my work for the past year or so has been really events based. So this season is normally my busy season, and I've been like at my house with a lot of time to think. So I've been going through like, in addition to the past few years of like downsizing a ton. This week I have been going through like all of my sketchbooks for the past like 5 or 6 years, and all the little journals and day planners and random documents saved on my desktop with notes of things to do or projects I want to do or things I've thought about that would be a cool idea for something. And I've been just like putting them in a mass document, getting all of the, like going through all of them, taking the little tidbits that I still think have something to them, putting them in one big document, printed it out, and then I've been like color coding. Like I made a key, color coding all of my ideas as far as what category and what life aspect they apply to. And then now going through sort of theme by theme and making this like Google Drive, Google slide presentation for myself to get my ideas in order. So it sounds silly, but it's been actually very illuminating. And I found this old like note to self list of things I want to accomplish, list of goals that I made in 2001. I was 21, living in Tucson, Arizona with my ex-girlfriend. And it was before I even knew I would ever live in Texas, before I moved here, before I went to college, before I really did anything. Well, that's not true. I traveled a bunch, but I hadn't done any career-minded things yet. So I wrote this sort of note to myself, which actually I've accomplished quite a lot of the things on there, and some of them were pretty far-fetched. And so, and then I've done a lot more things than I ever even expected to do. So it's been kind of nice, actually. You know, so often we get like wrapped up in the stuff we're doing, and we're doing thing to thing. And I think for those of us who are not considered essential, or at least those of us who haven't been working as much as some people are working harder than ever right now, and I feel for them because as much as it sucked to lose the money and whatever the momentum, it's been nice to have the opportunity to like really delve in and think about everything and look at all the accomplishments and check all of some of those goals off the list, and then really like sort through everything and think about what the next step is, what the next goals are. And so that's sort of like the theme of my life at the moment has been just like getting organized. And it doesn't sound very glamorous, but it's been actually pretty awesome. And I finished up a really big project that took a long time for various reasons, but it was also just a very big project. I made this original design Texas wildlife totem pole for a property up in Waco, Texas. And I'm about to be posting a bunch of photos from that. I meant to do it a few days ago, but I've been distracted, doing this stuff. And but now I think I'll do it tonight or maybe tomorrow in the morning, just so it has a little bit more time before people fall asleep and everything gets like drowned out by all this stuff in the world to look at, like on Instagram especially. So tomorrow morning I'll post those pictures. So look out for some pictures of this giant Texas wildlife totem pole project. And then that is out of the way as far as mentally my plate is now a little more clear. Also, I have like 15 and a half feet worth of space at my shop that I can work in now without having to walk over a totem pole. So I always find like making space and making room like super inspiring because I don't know. People always ask me like, what's the favorite thing you've made or carved? And I'm always like, it's not that I don't get attached to the work, but I'm always happy to rehome it and then have like room. And then the room makes me feel like excited. I'd rather just have the raw materials around me than the finished things that are not doing anyone any good by me staring at them. And so I have some space at my shop, and I have, thanks to this like handy list and all of the random little notes, and also like screenshots of images from Pinterest and whatever. Like I like to collect imagery. I have like a whole list. So you see, yellow is potential sculptures. So I've got this like, there's yellow. And when I made this master list, I was just like going journal by journal, just writing down and taking every little thing that I thought was like applicable to what I want to do now or in the near future. And so all of the yellow, and I didn't put it in order yet. That's why the color coding came into play, just to get my head together. So yellow, some more carving ideas. Some more carving ideas, yellow. It's a lot of like branding stuff, e-commerce stuff. A little bit of yellow there, a little bit of yellow there. And then today I was going through some other things that I forgot to include in this, and I added some more lists of sculptures. So there's a lot to do. If I feel like I'm, without work right now, it's only because I'm not making myself. And that's always kind of funny to me about being self-employed. That I find that I'm like busier. The moment I became self-employed, it's like I got busier than ever just because there's no end of ideas of things we could do. The trick is just figuring out how to get ourselves paid for them. So, I'm doing that. I've also been looking at like maybe a career shift. Not that I'm not going to give up anything I'm doing, but just maybe bringing in some money and from some other directions. I definitely believe in optionality, and this is a great example of why having options is good for you, because like your whole way of life and industry could just evaporate in one day based on some totally random event that you wouldn't think of it had anything to do with you, but it does. So I'm sad about the events because honestly I have the most fun traveling and doing live shows for people, and I don't know, it's the most fun. And I do have a couple of things coming up that so far have not been canceled. So there's a chainsaw carving competition in Montana, Libby, Montana, that's in September. I've been invited to compete in that, and I'm like crazy excited about it. I might actually I think I'm going to drive there. And so part of this yellow list is like all of the stock I could be carving to take up to Libby to try to sell while I have like a crowd of people to come by and look at it. So I'm most likely going to drive because it's easier for that to bring my own equipment versus like trying to figure out who I'm going to borrow from. So, and then in November, I'm going to somehow go to Slovakia for this ice temple project. Some of you might remember I helped carve, was on a team carving an ice temple a couple of years ago in Slovakia, and they do the project every year. Last year I was invited, but I ended up having another gig come up at the same time, and I bailed, and fortunately I was not like banned for life. Like they invited me again this year, and so I'm definitely going. Assuming I can get a flight, but I have some friends who have suggested some ways to get to Slovakia if I can't get there in traditional methods. So it's going to be an adventure because it's already really an adventure to get to Slovakia. Like, it's hard to get a flight into Poprad. And sometimes, like, I was planning on just going through Krakow and getting a ride through the mountains from Poland to Slovakia to get there. But I really do not want to miss that one. And so, temple, we're carving the ice temple. That's awesome. The design this year, I got a little look at it. Adam Bakos is the designer and the boss of the sculptors, and he showed me a little sneak preview of what it's going to look like, and I'm so excited. But last time I was there, it's in the mountains. It's put on by a ski resort, Vysoké Tatry. I think that's how you say it. And I did the hike last year. So you can hike up these mountains, and they're all these really beautiful, what do you call them? Chalets, or cabins, cabin inn, sort of like a bar, restaurant, place to crash. And they're all these cabins up the mountain at various points. You walk a few miles and you can stay at a cabin or take a shot of Borovichka or whatever. And it goes all the way up and over the mountaintop. I went to the highest point before you actually have to cross over the mountain. So, and I walked it, and it was definitely a super challenge because it's air gets thinner, and it's not exactly until the very last stage. It's not exactly climbing. It's mostly very intense hiking, and you have to. At some point, I had to take a few breaths, stop, let my legs rest, go a little further. But the cool thing about that part of Slovakia or that mountain is that at some point they don't have roads going up. You can't drive past a certain point. And the rest of the mountain you have to go on foot or by helicopter. And so, but they have all these inns that are supplying food and drinks and everything. So they hire humans to carry these supplies up the mountain on their backs. And they even have competitions for it every year. Men and women can compete and see how much weight they can carry up this mountain. And they get paid, these carriers get paid by the kilo and what they can carry up the mountain on their backs. And I saw guys with beer kegs on their backs, walking up this mountain, which I had trouble getting up there just carrying my own body. And so I really would like to try carrying up the mountain this coming year. And I have not been training at all. And I'm actually more out of shape than ever because I haven't been carving much either. So yeah, we'll see about that. Oh, and let me see if the chat's working. I'm going to take a little moment here to test this and see if I can find the chat and if any of you are actually listening to me and anyone has any questions. But where would it be? I can't actually seem to log into it. Bear with me, y'all. Talks amongst yourselves or talk to a chat if you see one. And there's supposed to be a built-in chat function on. So I'm testing out Restream especially today. So Restream does this cool thing. The part of why I've been wanting to stream a lot more, but I've been having trouble deciding where to invest the focus. And a lot of you may have multiple social media platforms or different platforms you use for various things online. And if you start to have more than one, it's you're not going to leave one to go to the other. So in general, trying to make things more convenient for people and where they already are instead of forcing people to join platforms they're not a part of. So Restream is offering a really cool thing where that's what they do. They connect, you can live stream through OBS, which is what I'm using, and then it sends it out to all these different channels. And so I have, should be streaming on YouNow, on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Facebook at the same time. And so I'm testing it out, but I'm trying to figure out how to do the chat thing so we can all talk in the same place, regardless of where you're watching from. And so that's sort of the purpose of this moment. It's not really to brag about how highly organized I am. It's to demonstrate how terrible at technology I am. So just a moment. And I'm having, the main problem I'm having is just getting logged into it. Oh, wait. Hey, everyone, I can see you now. Okay, so I'm not having trouble getting logged in. I'm just having trouble alt-tabbing. Hold on a second. Let me put you in your own tab, and then I can do both at the same time. And actually, why do I need to see myself anyway? That's, pretty narcissistic. I don't even need to see myself. All right. William, Cloud Queen, Danny Kissel. Hey, Danny. Felix, hey. How does ice compare to wood? Okay, so a lot of the tools for ice carving and wood carving are similar, though with ice carving you tend to use electric and battery chainsaws. And then you don't want to use like bar and chain oil on that. And then in the past, like when I was just carving the freezer, we didn't use an oil. We just like it didn't really overheat. But then when I was working in on that ice temple project, I ended up actually breaking a chain because it got like too hot and stressed out. And so they were using WD-40. I hadn't noticed that. So then I started using WD-40 like crazy, and it kept the chain like able to move and not get rusty. And so I guess maybe rust is a factor because you can buy some things like soy lube for ice carving. A lot of times, if you're working with ice, it's centered around the culinary world, and so you don't want to be using chemicals that are not food safe. So you can buy Aaron Kostick, who has not full spectrum ice, Elegant Ice Creations.com. He sells soy lube, so you can lube up your chainsaws with like a soy oil. And I think it's considered food safe. So if you're doing anything like shrimp ice trays and vodka luges or whatever, shot luges, whatever you call those, then you can use your soy oil. Oh, and then the other way that I noticed Felix said it makes a difference. The main thing that I learned the hard way when I was working on that temple was that you can't just like my background's wood, so I go and I'm like, okay, let's do the silhouette, and you start cutting the silhouette out. Well, with ice, if you put too much weight on it at a certain point, it stresses the whole thing out and cracks the ice throughout the whole project. So you have to do these like intermittent like stress cuts beforehand. If you know you're going to make one big long plane or cut, you do some stress cuts in first, so then it just takes a little chunk off at a time. And then there's other ways to stress out ice too. The cool thing about welding ice is if you're it has to be below freezing. But then water in a below freezing environment will just fuse ice together like almost like instantly. And so that's kind of cool. And then there's some tricks with ice too where you can hide flaws. You can hide flaws in wood. They're both different as far as hiding flaws because ice you can see through it. So in the past we did a little bit with like a slushy snow or a lot of times it melts. I mean, if you have it for like a wedding or something, if it's just on the outer surface, like that outer surface, it's going to melt in like no time. And so that's kind of cool because it sort of just self polishes. Okay, let me see some of these other questions. How am I today? I'm doing, actually, I would say I'm doing pretty well. Millie's home at the moment, so that gives me like a reason to exist and make dinners. So I'm taking care of myself better when she's around because if she's not here, it's like, I don't know, cooking for yourself and taking care of yourself is like, should be easy, but in some ways it's harder. You know, it's like how taking care of a cat who meows at you is easier than taking care of a houseplant that doesn't. So I don't know if it's the same thing at all, actually. Chainsaw Chad, thanks. Thank you for liking my videos. And I haven't been putting out as much lately, which is why I'm trying to test the streaming thing because I still want to make videos, but well, and I have some ideas for ones I want to make in the near future, but I'm trying to like juggle a lot of things at the same time, and I'm not doing it alone because I have like people I hire to help me out, but because I'm not bringing a lot of money in now with shows, then I kind of need to like budget, and so some of the getting my videos edited, for instance, by Vadim over in Ukraine, like I might not be able to do as much of that in the near future while I'm kind of waiting out this moment. But I still want to do, like when I go to Slovakia in November, I really want to do videos for that. Montana too, you know, I still want to do them. So we'll see. But this is like a nice way to not only do things more frequently without having to worry about editing or anything, but I want to start figuring out how to do maybe like bringing in other people and interviewing and having it be maybe a little bit more like topics, something more like a podcast, but a live interactive broadcast. So everyone who's watching can also like ask questions or contribute, you know, be involved in the conversation. Hey, Paul. Hello, Jorge from Atlanta. I like Atlanta a lot. I was there a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I always say yes if I have an opportunity. What steps do I use to prevent check and cracking on wood carvings? Well, so I use Eastern Red Cedar, and it'll have small little radial cracks that'll form all around it, which there's no stopping that. Like most chainsaw carvers use fresh wood for the most part, if we can get it fresh because it's a lot softer. And so be cracks. Like, and the joke among wood carvers or chainsaw carvers is a lot of the guys when they have like a if they hand out like a pamphlet on care for your carving or whatever, they'll say things like guaranteed to crack because like it's going to happen, and depending on where you put it. So if you want to avoid your chainsaw carving cracking, keep it out of the direct sunlight. That's like the biggest damage is the sunlight. You want to keep it out of standing water or anything that will help make it rot, or directly on dirt where bugs and stuff can get into it. And then as far as like certain kinds of wood, like pine, western red cedar, will get a really giant crack in it as it dries out, whereas like the eastern red just gets the little ones. So certain kinds of wood are more likely to have a big split. And so if you have a really large piece of wood and you know which side you want to have your face on, let's say you're doing a bear. The bear is a good example because they were kind of bulky. So if you're doing a big bear out of wood and you have one side that's going to be your face, after you carve it, you'll go and you'll put a big like stress relief cut down the back of it. Like you can go and essentially just make one big line along the back in a really sort of not obvious area, like where no one's really looking. And then that way, when it starts to crack, it'll have a place to kind of go and you can guide the direction of the crack and then hopefully keep your face from splitting. It's a little trick for you. I've only done that maybe once because of just what I've been working with. And I like to put a lot of holes. Like if I'm doing a competition, the biggest stuff I tend to do will be for a competition where they have really big logs. And often then I'll try to get all fancy with it. And I like to put a lot of holes and spaces in my carving. So that I think is supposed to help it dry maybe more kind of like uniformly. But I also leave them and I don't see them again usually. So who knows? I heard a while back that there was one I did in Ridgeway. It was this open spiral. It was one of the first. It was the second event I ever went to was Ridgeway in 2013. It was an open spiral, and I talked to them recently. Finally, I think it broke because it got knocked down in a storm, but they said it hadn't cracked too badly. So I was surprised by that because I thought it would make it a lot more fragile, but I think it did allow more airflow to like sort of dry it. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not really a scientist, but I do find it useful actually to go and see old carvings that I've done, or to have like I have a couple of ones around the house that I did when I first started, and like my totem pole, to watch things as they age. And I think that's where sometimes it's really great to talk to older carvers who've been doing it a lot longer because they have had a chance to really watch like, okay, this varnish after 5 years looks like this, or whatever. So anyway, let me get back to your questions. Hello. Hi, Quebec. It's cool to see like internationals or people from all over the states tuning in. And that's something I should think about actually when it comes to if I were to do, well, I'm going to try to do more like interactive broadcasts like this. Trying to figure out maybe the best time to schedule them as far as capture, like being able to be around or active when people might be more likely to have the time to watch or listen. So if you have any feedback on that, or if there's a time that works for you and you're watching, please put it in the chat and I will take a screenshot and put it in my notes of life and everything. Oh, do you want to hear about the other colors? So red is branding and website, because my website, I was supposed to have it launched again by end of April, and it just hasn't happened yet. But I'm working on just updating the website, updating the e-commerce, and maybe taking that in a different direction. And then mostly just like having like a nice landing page portfolio. So that should be happening in the near future. One of my studio mates at the shop has offered to help me with that. And so far, everything I've seen her do has been really like polished. Like she came in and in one day transformed her space, and it looks awesome. And so I'm gonna talk to her about it. And I've been meaning to get it all gathered. But part of this, I'm discovering that it's not so easy. It's not so straightforward just to think of things and put them into action. There's all these like intermediate steps between thought and action. And I've been lingering in thought for too long. So I'm trying to get into action mode. And then I have a comic project that I'm working on. So I don't know how long you've been around and been tuning into the stuff that I've been doing, but before I started chainsaw carving, I wrote a webcomic, and I worked with an artist in Canada. His name's Luke McKay, though he now lives in the States. He got married to an American woman. And so we worked on a webcomic for 5 years and put out a comic, three comics a week nonstop for that amount of time, and published a bunch of some graphic novels. And so I'm really wanting to do another webcomic project, and I've been in research mode for that. And it's like I have just printed out, and I'm terrible at the paper thing, but I'm having a really hard time just looking at screens and scrolling and remembering, So this is like research and notes and story ideas and character ideas and imagery and a whole bunch of things for this webcomic that I'm trying to go through. And at the moment, I'm working with Josh Flanagan on the writing portion of it. And then, the art portion is going to be a whole other thing to tackle. But even just with the writing, it's like I had an idea for something years ago. And so it's been kind of simmering and brewing in the back of my mind. But then I started really jumping into research in the last year or so, and the research has almost like totally hijacked the story and taken it in a totally different direction of things that, like, when I started, it has to do with Oregon history and Oregon logging history, among it, but Oregon history. And it's just taken me in all these different, like, unexpected directions and discoveries, and it's like make this real life is a lot more interesting sometimes than what we can imagine ourselves, and then that's been kind of like a cool process of just like getting really wrapped up and learning about the place that I grew up and I didn't know about. Like, I grew up in Oregon, and I thought I knew it, and then reading about like the history of it, it's just like, and I hated history as a kid. Like, I used to hide fantasy novels about dragons in my history books, like, in class. But as an adult, I don't know. It's like suddenly it's relevant to you, I guess, when you have a little bit longer of a life. And as a way to kind of just understand the world, you have to know the context. And so much of the context is in history, even if it's not always. Sometimes history is also just propaganda from a winning side. But so that's the thing that interests me, I think, is like a people's history, or just not about leaders and wars, but about how people lived and the history of industries. That's cool too, learning about the logging industry. And it's so funny because there was so much like tumultuousness growing up in Oregon, and I grew up in a logging family in the 90s, all around the spotted owl and Clinton administration, all this stuff. And so to like now read about it as an adult who's actually interested and be like, oh, I remember that measure, and I remember people getting all pissed off about it, and I remember people wearing t-shirts about the spotted owl, like it's kind of cool to like, I don't know, have a frame of reference for the things I actually lived through that I just didn't observe at the time. Anyway, that's a rambling thought. Argentina, wow, cool. Thank you for tuning in. Back when we were wooden forestry. And you just started carving. Okay, cool. Yeah. A really great resource if you're going to start chainsaw carving, because it's not, or carving at all, but chainsaw carving, is Facebook. Really, like, that's where most of the carvers are. And I've found a really, really huge and growing community. Like, I'm always seeing the add friend based on who you're friends with. So the more you add in one direction, the more people it suggests. And just like so many chainsaw carvers all around the world, and as much as I keep hearing this is such a niche thing, I mean, I think it's growing, and there's like a ton of people who do it, and some really interesting people do it, because it's like not easy to just jump into and like go take a community college class to learn how to do. Like, the people it attracts, or the people that stick around, are really like self-starting, brave, kind of on the fringe, sort of entrepreneurial, usually have very, what's the word, like independent / solo attitude, hermit-like attitudes about things, so it's like kind of attracts a cool group of people. And a lot of people too have discovered that they need to like modify their tools, or like use tools that weren't meant for that for this purpose, like they kind of like are inventive, tinkering type people. So if you want to meet a cool community, look, meet some chainsaw carvers, and you'll find them on Facebook. Okay, well, I've answered some questions. I'm really happy to see that this Restream chat is working, and it looks like it's pulling from different places. Oh yeah, it is, because it shows the icon of where you're talking from. That's badass. Okay, this whole idea of an ongoing, regular, interactive broadcast could work, guys. That's been on it's my list of things to do. So blue is e-commerce, and I've got all these e-commerce ideas. And the problem is that, like, when I'm trying to figure things out, a lot of times there's so much overlap, like all of these platforms. And how do you like be present for all of them, but also not like drive yourself crazy just messing around on your phone all day long while you're trying to do something? So Restream is actually, and I'm not working for them. Though I have recently reached out to say, hey, we should work together, Restream, because I think they're cool and I'll be using them. So, but at the moment, totally organically, no sponsorship whatsoever. I'm thinking this tool could be a great solution. So if y'all are having the same kind of problem I am, especially artists out there, y'all, if you guys are like promoting yourselves or doing all of your own PR type stuff, I want to start looking for, this is one, but I want to start looking for more things that can update and manage all of these different platforms and things we're kind of expected once we start them to keep maintaining in a way that's like allows you to still do what you want to need to do, like your thing, whatever that thing is. It's probably not social media marketing. So, and that's something I've been noticing a lot of my really fucking talented friends. They are sometimes the worst at promoting themselves. Sometimes it's because they are totally not tech savvy, which is like fair. Sometimes it's an attitude where I hear things like, I just want the work to speak for itself. And it's like, cool. And it will quietly in the corner with no Facebook page or Instagram. But like, so it's weird. You have to keep a balance. And at least we have these tools where we don't have to wait around to get discovered and do things for exposure as much. You know, we can, ouch, my knees all tweaked. I can't sit cross-legged that long. Put that one out. Yeah, I'm a little out of shape, y'all. Turning to sit now, that's not a good sign. Have I ever tried marble or stone? No, but I'd really like to. I think that would be cool to make at least. I've heard that there's like endless amounts of sanding, which is like my least favorite thing. So I don't know that I'll ever become like a great stone carver. My brother's learning how to do it in Germany right now. He's actually doing an apprenticeship for traditional stonemasonry. So he offered to teach me, and I said, I'll just ask you to do my stone carving, and I'm going to do your chainsaw carving. So he wants to learn, but I'm not saying I don't want to learn, but I'm still learning what I'm doing. Like I feel confident as a wood carver, but there's like so much room to improve. And I every time I start to feel like, I don't know, overly proud, I'll just go to a chainsaw carving event and meet some kind of like mega super genius that makes me feel like, oh, right, I still have like 20, 30 years of learning to do. You know, there's always room to improve if you love what you do. And then the more you love it and get into it, I think the more you see, I don't know, you want to be as fluent in it as possible. And I was talking about this today because I am a little out of shape and I haven't been carving as much. Like normally at the end of the summer, after all of these carving shows, I've got awesome like sculpted arms and like I can go all day long and like not really need that much of a break. I'm not sore the next day because my body's like used to it. But it's not just like a physical stamina thing, like a sport that you have to keep practicing with chainsaw carving. It's also, there's a fluency in the movement of your body in the sculpting process and your wrists and everything. When you're really in it, like you can be like, you're curving and you're at the same time flicking your wrists into like texture and like there's this, and when you're really like practicing a lot, it becomes more like a language where you're not like clunky. And then if you come back after like taking too long of a break, it's like, it feels like you're stuttering almost, or it's like a little choppier. I don't know. So what was the point of that? I don't know what the point was. Yeah, it's a full body art form, and you have to kind of get into it. And the people that I know that are, especially the speed carvers, who are like very, very fast and good, they train for it like athletes. And what platforms am I streaming to? Okay, Paul, so right now, this is streaming to Facebook, YouTube, YouNow, which I don't know if you've heard of. They're a live streaming thing and they can monetize. And I was doing some stuff over there and it was monetized. And I was actually, so y'all out there who have been working with Twitch, and if you haven't been feeling like you're getting much traction, you might try YouNow. It's a little more obscure and I haven't really heard anyone talking about it that much, but I haven't done too many videos there, but I actually got like checks from it when I got into their like partnership program. I'm not saying that you can't do that with Twitch, but you know, every time I've used Twitch for something, because I'm not doing gaming stuff, I have really not felt like I could get any eyeballs on it. And so, and then I hear that Twitch limits like being able to multi-stream like this. And they want you to concentrate on them. And so I haven't really dug too deep into Twitch, though everyone swears by it, and that's what people tend to go for live streaming stuff. And that's I started to try to do, I wanted to grow that, and then I just wasn't getting much traction. That's why I decided not really to go with Twitch. And the decision to simulcast, multi-stream, my carving friends and most of the people who care about chainsaw carving are on Facebook. but then I still want to be able to like send things to YouTube, and for me, YouTube is monetized, so it makes more sense to grow YouTube. Though I would say more of my friends are on Facebook, and then Periscope. I haven't been using much lately, but I have to say it gets me the most attention for the most part. Maybe with the exception of Instagram. I don't like Instagram because unless you're totally on top of your brain and remembering to hit save this video, it just disappears forever, and then there's no way to change like 5 minutes later, make it save it. It really irritates me, and I've lost some pretty fucking amazing little moments on Instagram that I started to stream and were actually very cool, like will never happen again, you can't recreate them things, and they just like went away forever, and we couldn't even figure out later how to screen capture this and do the sound. Like it really annoyed me. So Instagram may draw a lot of eyeballs in the moment, but I don't like that I have to be so on top of myself to remember to save it. So I don't know if I wanted to put too much. I mean, I'm not opposed to using Instagram for that, because a lot of people that follow me are there. But I like being able to record it, especially since I'm thinking in the future, once this is maybe a little bit more, once I figure out how to manage this a little better, it could be more like a podcast. Because I'm doing so many Zoom calls with my friends right now, and everyone's really thinking a lot more about like, oh, you don't have to be in the same room or the same state or the same country to have like a very effective meeting. And so it could be cool to just be recording some of these like interesting conversations I'm having with people I know, just talking about creative stuff usually, or business stuff, or this kind of thing, like what technology might be good for the thing you're doing. I don't know. No, I'm not trying to say that's what I'm going to be doing, but it might be kept a little bit more loose and random. I used to be on the Rooster Teeth podcast back when it was called The Drunk Tank, and that was totally random podcast. And I do kind of like having the option maybe to just talk about what I feel like in the moment. It'd be more like to actually stream. I think if it was more like just hanging out with y'all, and we can just talk about whatever. But I'm, because of my personality, I tend to talk about creative stuff and business stuff constantly anyway. And a lot of my friends, that's what they're interested in. So I'm sure that will come up a lot of the time. Carver Kings. Hello, guys. Like using a GoPro camera and overheats and you lose all the footage. Oh my God, yeah. And I dropped a hard drive one time and lost thousands of dollars because it had all the footage that I got from a guy that I bought a plane ticket for to come with me to a carving event, paid for his room, rented a rental car, like all of this stuff, and then I dropped that damn hard drive. And I spent extra money on those hard drives that they say are supposed to be like super durable. I dropped it this far onto a shag carpet, and it broke irretrievable. And I've done way worse to the cheap hard drives, so don't even listen to them, and don't spend twice as much money on a hard drive thinking that it's really going to be safe. It's not going to be safe. Get the cheap hard drive and keep it in the box it comes in, wrapped in all the stuff, and wrap it then in a blanket, and just don't do anything with your life. But it was awful, and I sent it off because it was so precious. Oh, and it had this long interview with my great aunt about family history. I think it had a video from my mom from before she died. Like, awful. All on this one hard drive. That's my fault. There is such a thing as cloud storage. But anyway, yes, things can go wrong, and they're excruciating. So I sent it off to one of those places, and they charged me $800 to tell me that everything was corrupt and they couldn't do anything for me. So, yeah, it stung. SSD drives, only way to go. Okay, thanks for the tip. Hopefully this chat conversation stays, and I'll just screenshot everything everyone said. Oh, and so if you're just tuning in, one thing I asked the crowd earlier, y'all, is if for you, when you watch streams or broadcasting or whatever, is there a time of day, a certain day of the week, time of day of the week, and be sure to mention where you are and what that time means to you, where you're more available to watch something like this. So I'm trying to figure out maybe if I do something regular, it makes the most sense to be very regular about the timing so people can kind of come to expect it. And then I can actually make sure it happens. Weeks go by so fast that it's like, it's really dizzying sometimes. Actually, I've been kind of surprised. At the beginning of this COVID stuff, when we all started to realize what it meant when it comes to distancing and how long it could take. And granted, we don't know when it's going to end and it's still happening. But I was like, the idea of July, August felt like a million years away, and it's already here. And it's like, how did I spend this much time mostly in my house and have it go by that fast. Like, it's kind of funny. Maybe because, I don't know, maybe because I think the main thing is there's fewer little highlight moments as far as like, if it just were a normal summer, I would have already been like all over Texas, maybe Oklahoma on carving trips, maybe overseas. And instead, nothing's happened. And I try to remember what happened on any given week. And granted, I've been getting through my list of stuff and talking to people and still living, but it's hard to even remember. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing's standing out at all in my mind as to what I did any given day. So for y'all, what has been, I guess, like the worst part about all of this, the COVID-19 pandemic stuff for y'all, and what has been like the best part? Because I've been talking to a lot of people who, even though they've lost like a ton of money or they got, they were sick for a while or whatever, like some people are really finding some good opportunity in this, even if it's just on a personal reflection level. Let me know if you're having, and you don't have to talk about this because some people don't want to share their worst moments, but if you, how you've been feeling and if you're getting anything good out of this. I've been actually feeling strangely optimistic lately, and I don't have any like particular reason to be more optimistic than a few weeks ago, but I've been practicing gratitudes. Oh yeah, let me tell you about this. So I'm finally, I've been just working on getting organized, getting my head together, getting like reinvigorated a little bit. Oh, and changing directions a little bit when it comes to business, since like I said, events are now a huge question mark and can't be counted on. So just like a lot of processing. And one thing that my therapist suggested doing was making a list of gratitudes every day, like trying to write down things I'm grateful for. And most people are doing like 1 a day or 3 a day, and I didn't really think about it, and I just gave myself the challenge of 10 a day, which is actually some of the things I'm grateful for now are getting very small, but life is made of that stuff. So I've been doing that and trying to keep up with it. But it's been training. I've been accused recently by somebody who didn't mean it in a nice way that I have the brain of a lawyer. Or I think they were trying to say I'm good at arguing, but in a way that wasn't very nice. But I'm going to take it as a compliment because everything's about optimism now. But my brain does like tend to play out hypothetical situations, and I am that annoying devil's advocate person that even with people I agree with, I feel the need to present the other side of something. It's really annoying. Nobody likes that. There's no real need for it at all. And it's not helping me. But so that I do that. But this, because I have to do 10 a day, and like my brain is really stretching and more on the optimistic side of how things could play out, just to have like, I don't know, a silver lining, or like just really to fill my list every day. And if it's not a very good reason, but at least it's like a good practice. How's my day, Hitman? It is going pretty well. I think Millie ordered us some Taco Bell, so I've got that to look forward to. I'm grateful for Taco Bell. For Taco Bell with Millie. It sounds like I said, but imagine if we didn't have it. Lindsay. Oh, hey, Lindsay. The best part of this opportunity is to take time to slow down. Totally. And one thing I had a weird realization for the other day, as far as that goes, when my brain goes dead for a minute, or if I'm like driving somewhere, or any moment of any day, or dealing with any, like the thing, I have a question pop up in my head all the time, which is, what do I want? And I have a really hard time answering that for myself a lot. I feel like pretty driven, but as far as what I want, like, it's kind of, I don't know, and it's been bothering me, and it kind of gives me a weird, agitated, anxious feeling. But maybe I don't need that much. And I'm not trying to say that I don't like want or deserve whatever. Like obviously we all want to grow and get better at what we do and make a little bit better money and invest a little bit more in all of that. But maybe that's a good, if that question doesn't come back with like a whole list of stuff, like maybe that's a good thing. And it might be good to take a moment to be like, oh, I have everything I need. Cool. Like, and appreciate it and not feel like anxious about it. So yes, to slow down. Though it would be nice to have a little bit more things to do, like fun stuff to go to. But I have to say, one bright side for me has been how much money are we saving not going out all the time? And like even just like a few drinks with friends at the bar like every week or whatever, like if you add that all up, I think I've definitely been saving money. I mean, part of that is out of sense of like dread and panic and just preparing for this global economic crash or whatever that we're all hearing about that's following this and everything. But there's also just been on by nature of having nothing to do or go to, saving money. So anyway, I'm really happy about this chat thing because that was something I couldn't figure out before, and I guess it was because I hadn't downloaded it separately. So Restream's chat, you have to you'll download it and use it separate as a separate app. So I think that's why in the past I've never been able to get that chat thing to work. I was using the tiny chat, but that was confusing then because I had to then post everywhere a link to where the chat was. And I like how this shows where you guys are talking to me from, so I can see where you are. That's pretty badass. And like I said, I have yet to form a relationship with Restream, so this is all totally just my observations today using it. And I've used it maybe once or twice before, and it seemed to work out okay. So, but the chat thing is exciting because then we can all feel like we're in the same room together. Okay, so part of my goals, and if you missed this and this is you see this later or you thought about it and you want to get back to me, you can search my name on pretty much every platform I'm trying to learn and adapt. Millie just made me get into Discord. I still a total novice there, but Discord seems like a pretty cool place to organize and chat and have a little bit more of a easy conversation with each other. So I might start using that more for just interacting with people on a more social level with y'all. So, but in any case, any of the platforms that I'm on, it's just going to be Griffin Ramsey. And you can just let me know if you have an opinion as far as what time of day, from where you are, what your time zone is, would work for you as far as something you could watch regularly. Because I'm thinking about doing more of these, but probably with somebody I think is cool who has something interesting to talk about. Feel really lucky to be a creative, and an upside, because I'm all about upsides right now, to being older and having been around for a while is that I've really collected a lot of really awesome people in my life, and just very either super creative, super knowledgeable, crazy awesome stories, or multi-talent people who have started in one thing and have ended up somewhere else, and in the process have innovated because they've come from a totally different background. Or that's one thing I like about chainsaw carving, because it's so random that most people didn't start off doing that or plan their whole life to be a chainsaw carver. They usually come from other places or directions, and that can kind of influence their work as far as well, I was using this example today. There's a chainsaw carver called Chris Foltz who has kind of up to the stakes, raised the stakes of chainsaw carving competitions, because you can't really just look at a cylindrical log and just do intricate sculpture. No matter how good your idea is, it's very hard to compete against somebody who's carving from that same log is 5 times as wide and spread out all over the place and going in all these crazy directions. You're just going to be upstaged. And the downside of that for the traditional wood carver is that it's kind of hard to do. You have to think of it more like a sewing pattern and less like just a subtractive sculpture. And that all of those add-ons are really time consuming. And so sometimes you sacrifice maybe a little bit more of the carving detail that you wanted to do. So it's a different strategy, but like I said, it's changed the face of the game, and people have to adapt. Anyway, I was thinking about him because his background, he's a chef, which got him into ice, which got him into wood carving, instead of like me, wood carving to ice. And so the ice folks do lots and lots of welds because, like I said, just dumping a little water when it's below freezing will weld something in place immediately. So for them, I think add-ons are just no big deal. And so because he came from that direction into wood carving, he's changed wood carving. And that's kind of interesting to me, And I'm not just talking always about wood carving. I mean, I'm talking about it a lot, but I'm interested in people who come from one direction, discover that they have a talent in a new direction or change fields or whatever, and what they actually end up bringing something to the field. That's kind of cool. What's my next carving goal? That's a good question. Okay, so this list of yellow stuff. I went through it and I had all these things, and I'm I have like some animals on here. I'm like, no more animals. Like, I just did a bunch of wildlife, and I really, in last year, I was doing lots of more commercial type stuff and logos and things people like, and so now I kind of want to make people, I just want to for a little while make things that I like, that I just think are funny or fun or I'm interested in. Like, let me read some of the things on my list. All right. Aliens. There's this alien sketch I did forever ago, and I really want to make a lady alien, like a sexy lady alien carving. So I'll probably be making something like this in the near future. And somebody who does aliens, like a lot of aliens, is Ken Braun. He's up in Colorado. He's a really cool carver who does kind of like whatever he feels like, regardless of whether or not a town is interested in, some kind of crazy monster or whatever. Like, he usually does something interesting. And so, and he seems to have fun doing what he does, and he makes this like crazy world around him. Like in Colorado, he's got this kind of, I think it's Chainsaw Gallery. It's like weird buildings. I remember I was really impressed with his workbench because it was like a sculpture in itself. Here's some of the things. I just printed out some stuff. Like, I want to do another swan. I did a quick carve of some swans in Germany, and I didn't quite arrive at finishing because it was 2 swans touching in the middle, and I didn't quite have enough time to finish the feathers. So I have some, so Montana, I'm trying to figure out right now, goals. I'm trying to figure out what the master carve, big carving is going to be. Something like interesting and unique and large. But there's 4 quick carves in Montana at Libby. And actually the chainsaw event is called Kootenai Country Montana International Chainsaw Carving Championship. So that's in September, and so there's 4 quick carves. I'm trying to figure out what can I do in an hour, which I got to double check and make sure it's an hour long. And so I think maybe a swan. I think I got a mermaid here. I don't know if I can do that in an hour, but I think her pose might make it somewhat easier. Maybe not. Should maybe practice some of these. Uh-oh, I think Millie's telling me that Millie's calling. I think it has to do with Taco Bell. Let me just check this. Hey, are you calling me because, can you bring it up? Because I'm in the middle of a stream right now. Yeah? Cool. All right, come up and bring some Taco Bell, please. Bye. Okay, and so I was thinking maybe a chair or something, like something useful. I don't know, and sort of rustic, simple, but modern. Could be cool if I can get it done in an hour, but it depends on the size of the wood, so that might just be better to do as so here's another thing. In Montana, if I bring my van, I can make a lot of the stuff in my shop when I have some time because my shows are canceled, so I've got time to just and the space, because the totem pole is out of the way, to just crank out a bunch of stuff I feel like making. Here's something I want to not do for a quick carve. I'm going to make it here. I've been thinking about it forever. I really want to make a poison bottle. So that'll be in the near future. Oh, here's a quick carve that I didn't quite arrive at in an hour when I was in Germany for various reasons. And so I want to do a troll doll again, but this time really make it look like the troll doll that we all know and love. Hi. I want to do a raccoon in a trash can.
I come with delivery of food.
Thanks. Hey, do you want to say hi?
Hello. Wait.
Oh, this is the chat. Hold on, move back so you can see.
I actually opened your quesadilla thinking it was mine. I don't know how to figure it out.
I lost the actual. So I'm just chatting with folks. You can't see us because that's on the chat window. But okay. Thank you. Do you have any hot sauce? Can you bring it? All right, I'll see you in a minute. Thank you. Can you bring some water?
Yeah, I can bring water.
Millie's awesome. She went to the store today and got all the supplies for a dinner I decided I didn't want to cook, and then she also ordered the Taco Bell. So really taking care of me. And I was in Japan. I went to Japan a couple years ago for Hikaru Kodama's event, the Ezo Cup. And while I was there, Millie and I went, and that was in Hokkaido. And then we went to Tokyo for like a few days just to be tourists. And we went to this owl cafe where you can actually hang out with owls and ravens and hawks and just hold, actually there's some you can hold the hawk on your arm. There's a few you can actually handle, and then the rest you just kind of hang out with while you drink coffee. And so here's an owl we were hanging out with. And I thought it was such a great shot that although I'm trying to, maybe not doing so much wildlife, owls are the one thing around the world that universally are loved. If you ever want to do something popular. Japan, they love owls. In Germany, they love owls. England, everyone loves an owl, Millie. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. If I couldn't find any hot sauces in the bag, even though I asked for some.
Are you fucking serious? They didn't bring any
So-
hot sauce?
Got you some A1 stuff.
Some steak sauce. All right. Wait, do we have salsa?
We do?
Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Luckily, it's so full of taste chemicals that I'm going to enjoy it. But that's the second time they haven't brought us any sauce.
I even asked for it all. They got the straw.
I'm outraged.
Hi.
Here's a thing that I tried to carve in England when I went to the English Open years and years ago, and I ended up pulling the last. Most of these carving events, you draw numbers. Millie, you were there and you saw it.
I did.
Here's the next to me.
I can't be here.
In England, I drew. It was one of the times where I drew numbers. Here, let me bring this over. There's actually, if you want to read the.
Hello.
That's satisfied dread. Satisfied? I can't read.
Winnipeg.
We used to listen to the Drunk Take, and I believe you mentioned visiting Winnipeg and watching a parking lot fight. Yeah, it was girl gangs, French-speaking versus English-speaking gangs of women in Winnipeg. This is back in 1997, and it was outside of like some kind of a show, or it was just a bar. I don't remember what the circumstances were. You might remember more than I do. What brought me up that way? I have a really good friend. When I was in high school, I was a foreign exchange student to France. And while I went there, I met another exchange student from Canada, Jody. She was a couple years older than me. And, this is a funny story. So Jody Jack. And we spent the year together. We became really good friends in France. And then I went back to the States. She went back to Canada. And then at some point I took a Greyhound to visit her in like 97 after I got back from France. And went up, hung out with her. We went to the Lilith Fair, drove down to the Lilith Fair in Minnesota, outside of Minneapolis. And then we drove up to Winnipeg. She was going to be going to school there. And then that's where we saw the fight. So that's why I was up in Canada at that moment. And it's so weird because we randomly ended up in this small town in France together. And then we kind of lost track of each other after. And then but a few years ago, I reached out to her and we both became woodworkers. Neither of us had ever expressed an interest in that before when we were younger. But she is a carpenter, like a really accomplished carpenter. And I'm a chainsaw carver, and it's so fucking funny. And actually, we were talking about starting a business together. I don't know if that's going to materialize, but it's something we've been discussing, doing like a place where we could do workshops and things. But just really random thing in life. Okay, so I went to the English Open, and I pulled the worst log, and it was like half rotten piece of oak, and I thought I was going to accomplish this. Instead, I got a woman with a twisted arm around her head that looked like she was sitting in a banana peel. Hey, thanks. Sorry, I didn't leave any room for you to talk at all.
It's fine.
Thank you for the Taco Bell, sweet child.
Bye.
Bye. So, yeah. And I'm not going to eat this in front of you because that's super rude. But I might end up going. But thank you very much for tuning in. And I've had a lot to say for somebody who had no plan with anything to say. So hopefully with like guests maybe. And when I say guests, more like, I don't know if we can do it through Zoom, or I used to be able to do like Google Plus Hangouts, then could be embedded to YouTube or streamed through Google Plus Hangouts, but I'm not really sure if that's the best way anymore. So if any of you do this kind of thing and have any suggestions on maybe the best way to do a 2-person or maybe 3, I think 2-person back and forth kind of live stream, open to anyone who wants to, ask questions or, contribute. Comments, please let me know if you think you have a solution, because I'm trying to figure out these technological things and not be scared of them, to where I know there's so many times where I've had some kind of cool thing I wanted to talk about or show y'all, where I'm just like hung up in the details of the technology. I got kind of spoiled when I was at Rooster Teeth for having a lot of people who knew how to do that kind of thing around me, and now it's on me, and so I just have to figure out how to do it. And I do think once it's all plugged in, just like how I hate paying bills on time, but once you get it all automated, it's fine. Like maybe I can figure out a solution where it's really easy to just like click a button and then it's all working, and then it'll be a little easier. Hello from Ireland. I was gifted a nano blade for her 30th last week. Excited to get some small projects in the workshop. Well, happy birthday and good luck with your projects. Okay. I'm going to, oh, hey, Steve. I was actually just talking about our potential e-commerce. idea. So Steve Norris over there in the chat. Oh, you don't see him, but if you're on Facebook, you might. Been talking to my friend Steve about maybe working together on some kind of e-commerce. So taking some thought. I had an e-commerce site. My website, I sold carvings and T-shirts and soap and perfume and jewelry and different things that sometimes I design, sometimes I bought the designs. Like Tom Chippendale, the tattoo artist, has done some work for me, and he made some cool designs about chainsaw carving and me and camping scenes and things like that. And I made them into temporary tattoos. And then so I was selling those on the website. And I think a lot of that stuff might come back, or at least to sell through the rest of it when I bring the website back up. But I'm really hoping to have some new t-shirt designs. I have an idea for this like trucker style foam hat I really want to make. And I've been thinking about forever. So that should come out hopefully in the near future. And then like I have this whole list of all these little carvings I want to do. And so, yeah, it's coming back. I just need to get my head on straight and actually finish the website and get it up. And that's another one of those technological things that's like throwing me. Is that don't really have a background in website making, and so I'm trying to figure out the best place. And I keep getting hung up clicking through Wix template catalog, and then I hear, oh, maybe you should do Squarespace, and then maybe you should just do WordPress and design it. Like all of these options. That I think is like one of the bigger problems in the world right now. Is that we have so many options that it's like debilitating and paralyzing sometimes. Like when you go to buy toothpaste and there's like 300 kinds of toothpaste, and you have to like look through all of them to see which one might be the best for your like particular thing. And so there's a lot of time we waste day to day like sorting through options. And it's even hard now to even tell what options are best, because like the system is kind of like people who get to the top know how to get to the top. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best product, What was the point of that? Oh, dating apps too. Just like the same man with a beard and the forearm tattoo and the black t-shirt like a million times over and over again, and you have to pick one to spend your afternoon with. It's getting to be very like, choice is great, but I mean, how much more choice do we need, really? Hello, Preston from Austin. Are you new to town? Yeah, well, there's not a lot to do at the moment, but I don't know what you can do. I mean, I thought you could go down to the water, but then I heard some people say that at certain times they weren't able to get in either. So I don't know, maybe Barton Springs, if they're still open. Does anyone know if Barton Springs is open? Anyone else in Austin right now? And it's also really hot right now, so probably not the best time to move here, but welcome. Okay, I'm going to eat this. I probably shouldn't have asked her to bring this up, because now I can't stop staring at it and smelling it. So I'm going to eat this Taco Bell, and I will do this again soon. Hopefully a little bit more sophisticated, maybe with a friend, some kind of cool friend I want to introduce you to. Okay, thanks. And if you have any other feedback for me, even if it's helpful criticism, please just leave it on one of my places, wherever you happen to be, where you can let me know what you think. And cool. All right. Bye, y'all.